The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or another print disability that makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org. Your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for today, Friday, February 20th, it's the 27th, 2026. The readers today are
J.J. Patek
and Don Williams.
Don't push it. It's 27.
Leading off with the weather. This is a classic. If you don't like the weather in Buffalo, wait 5 minutes. Today, some sunshine with a high of 44 and a low of 38. Tomorrow, breezy in the morning and a high of 40 and a low of 17. Sunday, low clouds and very cold, a high of 21 and a low of 10. Monday, turning sunny and cold with a high of 27 and a low of 19. Tuesday, back to 40, increasing cloudiness, a low of 31. Wednesday, partly sunny, high of 42 and a low of 36. And Thursday, rain with a high of 45 and a low of 43.
That's why they call it spring, because the temperature springs up and down.
Well, yeah, we don't have a lot of snow left out there. I think weather last week or so has taken care of much of it. I think that rain next week is going to finish it off. We'll see.
Yeah.
But it's still, in Buffalo, it's still kind of early. We'll see.
It is Buffalo. But spring's coming.
Trace of snow yesterday, 86.6 inches so far this season. The sun rose today at 6:55, and it's really kind of nice because you could see it. It'll set tonight at 6:02. The moon's going to be full in a few days, so watch out for that. Let's see, when's that? Tuesday. Yesterday's high temperature, 26, and the low was 19. Normally, 36 and 22. The record high was 71 in 2000, and the record low, 5 below in 1963, my senior year of high school. And nationally, Zapata, Texas, once again, with a high of 100 degrees. Yeah, and Land O'Lakes, Wisconsin.
Land of butter.
Indeed. Well, negative 11 yesterday, so pretty chilly up there.
Well, the butter won't spoil.
So that's the weather. How's the front page looking?
Well, after fleeing persecution, something horrible in U.S. This is about that refugee that was sadly found deceased. But this is from Ben Sujimoto. Friends and family of Nural Amin Shah Alam gathered in the Erie County Holding Center on the morning of February 20th, awaiting the release of the Rohingya refugee who had been in custody for the last year. It was supposed to be an encouraging moment ahead of Shah Alam's sentencing next month. Recent events had shown promise. Shah Alam, previously indicted by a grand jury on 3 felony charges, had pleaded guilty to 2 misdemeanors, which, according to Erie County District Attorney Michael Keene, meant he would avoid deportation. Shah Alam's local attorneys confirmed Thursday that Shah Alam's family had been advised by an outside immigration attorney that it was safe to post bail. The family waited for hours, said Imran Fazal, a local Rohingya community leader who for the last 7 months navigated Shah Alam's legal proceedings alongside the incarcerated refugee's son, a 22-year-old Faisal, in the Legal Aid Bureau of Buffalo. Shah Alam never came out of the holding center to see his supporters. Unbeknownst to them, he had been released a federal agent hours before. His family never saw him again. When they went to the police and asked him why he wasn't coming out, that's when they told him the Border Patrol took him, Fazal said. No one bothered to come and let the family know he's not here. For reasons Fazal said were still uncertain, Border Patrol dropped Shah Alam off at the closed Tim Hortons on Niagara Street in Black Rock, according to Mayor Sean Ryan, after an immigrations and custom enforcement facility did not accept him. Shah Alam, a practicing Muslim, had likely not eaten due to Ramadan fasts and a lack of halal meals at the holding center, Fazal said. He was not close to home. Shah Alam's family resides in an East Side neighborhood amid the growing Rohingya community in Buffalo. It had been several months since his family had moved from the West Side. 5 days later, the body of the 56-year-old refugee who spoke no English did not have a cell phone, was not wearing shoes, and almost completely blind, was found downtown on Perry Street. On Thursday morning, Fazal and Shah Alam's family still lacked answers. It's shocking, Fazal said, with the lack of communication from authorities. I didn't expect something like this in a country like the United States. It's horrible. As the story of Shah Alam's death was shared internationally, the Rohingya community of about 2,000 in Buffalo was left to grieve at Shah Alam's funeral Thursday afternoon, and more broadly wrestle with the tragic outcome in a country long perceived as a refuge from genocide. After coming to the United States, he was not able to experience freedom, Fazal said. Instead, he experienced something horrible, and then he lost his life. Shah Alam arrived in Buffalo from Malaysia on December 24th of 2024, just days before the start of President Trump's second term. Like many Rohingya over the last decade, he had escaped civil war. Some of his family members remained in Malaysia, but Shah Alam pursued a life in the U.S. We have been persecuted for decades, said Fazal, a 31 Rohingya who had also escaped conflict. It didn't just happen yesterday, right? We don't even have numbers. Thousands of people were killed back home and we don't have the numbers. Shah Alam was resettled by Jewish Family Services, one of 6 resettlement agencies in Buffalo, Fazal said, and was provided housing near the border of the Black Rock and Riverside neighborhoods. The resettlement process was interrupted for Shah Alam, however, as Trump suspended refugee admissions and cut off funding from resettlement agencies, which as a result laid off several employees. Due to the cuts, Shah Alam did not receive the cultural orientation training crucial for refugees new to America, Fazal continued, which became a contributing factor when he was approached by police after a person at a Tonawanda Street residence called 911 to report his presence inside their fenced-in yard. Shah Alam was arrested shortly after for injuring 2 Buffalo police officers. Shah Alam's son, in a statement via Fazal before his father's death, shed light on the original arrest on February 15, 2025. My father was arrested because he was standing in front of somebody's house for a few minutes to take shelter while it was snowing heavily that night, Fazal Alam said. A dog began barking and the homeowner called the police. Unfortunately, my father could not understand the officer's instructions, which led to a tragic misunderstanding. His actions were not out of defiance or bad intent, but confusion and lack of understanding. Fazal, who in October founded the Rohingya Empowerment Community Center on Reed Street, a few blocks south of Martin Luther King Jr. Park, said understanding Western culture is a very difficult thing for Rohingya. In the minority group's freedom efforts in Myanmar, education was not available, jobs were not available, and the movement was restricted between villages. Their language is oral, not written, which is an additional barrier to the communicating effectively with English speakers. Shah Alam didn't learn anything about culture, so he didn't know how to react when police come and they ask you to do something, Fazal said. So it wasn't his responsibility to understand the police. It was the responsibility of the police to understand that he doesn't speak English. He needs an interpreter, right? When he was dropped off by Border Patrol at the Tim Horton last week, Shah Alam was likely in a similar predicament, his legal counsel said. He would not have known where he was or had the wherewithal to contact his family or avail himself of any other resources or services that could have assisted him, Legal Aid Bureau of Buffalo said in a statement. It was not only the actions of Border Patrol that incensed community members who spread the missing person message regarding Shah Alam, but the manner in which he was incarcerated in the first place last year. Nurul was not a criminal and mistakenly taken simply for taking a walk and being a member of his community, said Alexandra Lopez, a Buffalo resident who shared frequent updates regarding Shah Alam's status. May his memory live on to soften the hearts of our collective for systemic change. America's place as a beacon of freedom feels more like a dark cloud to Fazal after the death of Shah Alam. He left his country with his family just to save his life, he said. He's a genocide survivor. In a cruel irony, Shah Alam was also not safe in a place of refuge. It's a tragic situation that he lost his life, Fazal said. It would make sense if someone loses their life back home because of the persecution, but losing her life under the circumstances in a country like the United States doesn't make any sense. What is the system? What is the justice? Sad story.
There are no words.
Nope.
Moving on to a different topic. Paula Spann of the KFF Health News asks, Should ads that tout drugs to consumers be restricted by law? Tamara Abrams had a lousy couple of years in 2022 and 23. Both her parents died. A relationship ended. She retired from communications consulting, and she moved from Arlington, Virginia to Warren, Rhode Island, where she knew all of 2 people. I was kind of a mess, recalled Abrams, who's 69. Trying to cope, I was eating myself into oblivion. As her weight hit 270 pounds and her blood pressure, cholesterol, and blood glucose levels climbed, I knew I was in trouble health-wise. What came to mind? Ozempic, the tuneful ditty from television commercials that promoted the GLP-1 medication for diabetes. The ads also pointed out that patients who took it lost weight. Abrams remembered the commercials as joyful and sometimes found herself humming the jingle. They depicted Ozempic takers cooking omelets, repairing bikes, playing pickleball, doing everyday activities, but with verve, she said. Those people were enjoying the hell out of life. So, just as such ads often urge, even though she had never been diagnosed with diabetes, she asked her doctor if Ozempic was right for her. Small wonder Abrams recalled those ads. Novo Nordisk, which manufactures Ozempic, spent an estimated $180 million in direct-to-consumer advertising in 2022 and $189 million the following year, according to Media Radar, which monitors advertising. By last year, the sum, including radio and TV commercials, billboards, and print and digital ads, had reached an estimated $201 million. And total spending on direct-to-consumer advertising of prescription drugs topped $9 billion by Media Radar's calculations. Novo Nordisk declined to address those numbers. Should it be legal to market drugs directly to potential patients? I have long had an answer to that question, but it's not my place here right now.
They did not used to do that.
This controversy, which has simmered for decades, has begun receiving renewed attention from both the Trump administration and legislators. The question has particular relevance for older adults who contend with more medical problems than younger people and are more apt to take prescription drugs. Part of aging is developing health conditions and becoming a target of drug advertising, said Stephen Woloshin, who studies health communication and decision-making at the Dartmouth Institute. The debate over direct-to-consumer ads dates to 1997, when the FDA loosened restrictions and allowed prescription drug ads on television as long as they included a rapid-fire summary of major risks and provided a source for further information. That really opened the door, said Abby Alpert, a health economist at the Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania. The introduction of Medicare Part D in 2006 brought a huge expansion in prescription drug coverage and, as a result, a big increase in pharmaceutical advertising, Alpert added. A study she co-wrote in 2023 found that pharmaceutical ads were much more prevalent in areas with a high proportion of residents 65 and older. Industry and academic research have shown that ads influence prescription rates. Patients are more apt to make appointments and request drugs, either by brand name or by category, and doctors often comply. Multiple follow-up visits may ensue. But does that benefit consumers? Most developed countries take a hard pass. Only New Zealand, and despite the decade-long opposition of the American Medical Association, the United States allow direct-to-consumer prescription drug advertising. Public health advocates argue that such ads encourage the use and overuse of expensive new medications, even when existing, cheaper drugs work as effectively. Drug companies don't bother advertising once patents expire and generic drugs become available. In a 2023 journey in JAMA, the Journal of the American Medical Association Network Open, for instance, researchers analyzed the therapeutic value of the drugs most advertised on television, based on the assessments of independent European and Canadian organizations that negotiate prices for approved drugs. Nearly three-quarters of the top advertised medications didn't perform markedly better than older ones, the analysis found. Often, really good drugs sell themselves, said Aaron Kesselheim, senior author of the study and director of the program on regulation, therapeutics, and law at Harvard University. Drugs without added therapeutic value need to be pushed, and that's what direct-to-consumer advertising does. Opponents of a ban on such advertising say it benefits consumers. It provides information and education to patients, makes them aware of available treatments, and leads them to seek care, Alpert said. That is especially important for underdiagnosed conditions like depression. Moreover, she wrote in a recent JAMA Health Forum commentary, direct-to-consumer ads lead to increased use not only of brand-name drugs but also of non-advertised substitutes, including generics. The Trump administration entered this debate last September with a presidential memorandum calling for a return to the pre-1997 policy severely restricting direct-to-consumer drug advertising. That position has repeatedly been urged by Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy, Jr., who has charged that pharmaceutical ads hook this country on prescription drugs. At the same time, the FDA said it was issuing 100 cease and desist orders about deceptive drug ads and sending thousands of warnings to pharmaceutical companies to remove misleading ads. Marty Makary, the FDA commissioner, blasted drug ads in an essay in the New York Times. There's a lot of chatter, Woloshin said, of those actions. I don't really know that we'll see anything concrete. This month, however, the FDA notified Novo Nordisk that the agency had found its TV spot for a new oral version of Wegovy false and misleading. Novo Nordisk said in an email it was in the process of responding to the FDA to address the concerns. Meanwhile, Democratic and independent senators who rarely align with the Trump administration also have introduced legislation to ban or limit direct-to-consumer pharmaceutical ads. Direct-to-consumer ads represent only part of the industry's promotional efforts. Pharmaceutical firms actually spend more money advertising to doctors than to consumers. Although television still accounts for most consumer spending because it's expensive, Kesselheim pointed to the mostly unregulated expansion of direct-to-consumer ads onto the web as a particular concern. Drug sales themselves are bypassing doctors' practices by moving online. Woloshin said disease awareness campaigns for everything from shingles to restless legs don't mention any particular drug, but are often marketing dressed up as education. He advocates more effective educational campaigns, he said, to help consumers become more savvy and skeptical and able to recognize reliable versus unreliable information. For example, Woloshin and Lisa Schwartz, a late colleague, designed and tested a simple drug facts box similar to the nutritional labeling on packaged foods that summarizes and quantifies the benefits and harms of medications. For now, consumers have to try to educate themselves about the drugs they see ballyhooed on TV. Abrams read a lot about Ozempic. Her doctor agreed that trying it made sense. She was referred to an endocrinologist who decided that her blood glucose was high enough to warrant treatment. 3 years later, and 90 pounds lighter, she feels able to scramble after her 2-year-old grandson, enjoys Zumba classes, and no longer needs blood pressure or cholesterol drugs. So Abrams is unsure, she said, how to feel about a possible ban on direct-to-consumer drug ads. If I hadn't asked my new doctor about it, would she have suggested Ozempic, Adams wondered? Or would I still weigh 270 pounds? Well, you're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service at 18 minutes past the hour. We're going to turn to the editorial pages. Starting off with the local editorial called Coming Soon. State funding is helping the expansion of a community center in the Fruit Belt neighborhood that's already made a significant impact. As reported by the News, John Harris, Roswell Park Comprehensive Cancer Center plans to nearly double its community outreach and engagement center. State Senator April Baskin and Assembly Majority Leader Crystal Peoples-Stokes announced $3 million in state funding, $2 million secured by the Senate in the current fiscal year, and $1 million committed by the Assembly. The money will go toward the development of a new wing at the center. The new wing, aptly named the HOPE, it stands for Health, Outreach, and Prevention Excellence. The HOPE Center will see construction start in September. It's expected to take 10 to 12 months to complete. The expansion will add about 4,000 square feet to the 5,590 square foot center. Dr. Candace Johnson, President and CEO of Roswell Park, said the Roswell Park Alliance Foundation is currently seeking support from donors to secure the final $1 million to complete the project. The center provides critical services to the community focused on advancing health equity and bolstering health outcomes in Western New York. The work includes cancer awareness outreach, educational programs, navigation to cancer screening, and financial wellness programming. The center also offers space for a diverse range of community gatherings. Here we go. Much of this bolsters the community outreach and engagement work that Roswell Park already performs as part of its National Cancer Institute designation. The numbers speak for themselves. Since the center opened October 2023, more than 16,000 community members have participated in more than 800 events, of which approximately 500 were led directly by community partners. It's exactly how Roswell Park should be strengthening its community ties.
And for the Downtown Theater Revival, here's great news for those saddened by the idea of downtown losing its only movie theater. As reported by the News' Jonathan D. Epstein, all the area movie theater companies taking over the market Arcade Cinema this spring. AMC Entertainment shut down in December. That left a gap downtown that is expected to be filled by Schenectady-based Scene One Entertainment, which operates 6 theaters in 4 states under Scene One Cinemas and BTM Cinemas. Scene One has signed a lease for up to 20 years with the property owner Benchmark Group to begin running the 8-screen downtown theater located at 639 Main Street. And owner and CEO Joe Masher expects to be operating by April. The show will kick off with a charity event on April 1st with a grand opening the next day. Expect a mix of newly released first-run movies along with special programming personally selected by Masher. See you at the movies. And Kindred at K Art. Those who want to learn more about Western New York's earliest residents will appreciate the Birchfield Penny Arts Center's exhibit, Kindred, works from the Seneca Iroquois National Museum collections at the reimagined K Art 808 Main Street in Allentown. Admission is free. Hours are Thursdays through Saturdays from 1 to 5 p.m. until July 26th. The exhibition is the first event of the museum's new off-center initiative. The program brings artwork from community partners in the Birchfield Penny collection into spaces across Western New York, expanding the museum's presence into the places where people live, gather, and create. Kindred highlights themes of storytelling and intergenerational traditions within indigenous communities. The exhibit features selected work from both the Birchfield Penny and the Seneca Iroquois National Museum collections and explores how artists preserve, reinterpret, and evolve cultural practices through their creative work. M&T Bank is a sponsor, and as officials note, the bank's support reflects its ongoing community partnership with arts and cultural events across the region. To learn more about Birchfield Penny Off Center, visit birchfieldpenny.org.
Turning to the editorial cartoons, Adam Ziglis has one today with 6 different pictures. One showing the refugee that we just read about, that died last week, holding a sign that says, "Black people aren't apes." The next one, Justice John Roberts holding a sign that says, "The tariffs aren't legal." Then we have the Statue of Liberty holding a sign that says, "Immigrants aren't animals." Then we have Uncle Sam saying, "Taxpayer dollars aren't for pillaging." And then we have a cabinet member, well, I have to admit I don't remember her name, "Clean air and water aren't for sale." And finally, the blind justice portrait saying, "Epstein files aren't going away." Adam Ziglis is having fun. And opposite page, Mike Ramirez has a rather obscure comic here, which it shows an eagle in the center holding a snake in its mouth, beak, in a more or less empty field with some kind of a banner sitting on a cactus that says Mexico, and surrounded by snakes in a field that says cartels. I guess that alludes to the shutdown of the El Paso airport last week because there were all these cartels threatening the airspace. Michael Ramirez having fun.
Now, El Mencho's death could worsen violence from narcotics traffickers. This is from Daniel DePetris. There have been times throughout history when a single event is so significant that it snowballs into international news. Think of the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989, the dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991, the 9/11 terrorist attack, or the killing of Osama bin Laden a decade later. For Mexico, the killing of drug lord Nemesio Ruben Oseguera Cervantes, also known as El Mencho, in a Mexican security operation in the state of Jalisco last weekend was certainly one of those moments. The successful targeting of Mexico's most violent and powerful narco-trafficker is arguably the country's biggest tactical success since security forces recaptured the infamous Joaquin El Chapo Guzman a decade ago. Yet in a cruel twist of irony, Mencho's demise could also make the problem of narco-trafficking even worse than it is today. Mencho was the definition of a brutal criminal. Like El Chapo before him, Mencho grew up poor in a rural area. He migrated to the United States in the 1980s, only to be arrested 3 times on drug charges, jailed in a California penitentiary for 3 years, and deported to Mexico in the early 1990s. Back in his home country, he joined the local police force, quickly hooked up with his brother-in-law, Abigail Gonzalez Valencia, who was a major player in the drug trade and rose up the ladder of the so-called Milenio Cartel.
After the cartel's leadership was decapitated by Mexican security forces, Mencho took matters into his own hands by creating a new faction that would come to be known as the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, CJNG. In a few short years, this criminal organization began to rival El Chapo's Sinaloa cartel, only to surpass it after Chapo's former organization went to war against itself in 2024. As one might expect, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum is happy these days. Not only is the country's most dangerous criminal neutralized, but the daring operation helps bolster her case that Mexico is heeding President Trump's demands to act more aggressively against the country's criminal networks. Sheinbaum has gone to great lengths to cater to the Trump administration's expectations by greenlighting additional CIA air surveillance in cartel-infested regions, allowing a small detachment of U.S. military advisors into the country for exercises, and sending more than 90 high-profile drug operatives to the United States for prosecution. One of those operatives was none other than Mencho's brother. Cooperation between the U.S. and Mexico on counter-narcotics operations has also been beefed up. The White House confirmed that the United States assisted the Mexican army with intelligence during Mencho's attempted capture. That's all good news. Still, it's hard to celebrate when news of Mencho's death was eclipsed by the CJNG's retaliation, which was fast, chaotic, and deadly. Cartel gunmen essentially turned a significant chunk of Mexico into war zones, blocking highways with the remains of charred vehicles, torching convenience stores, forcing tourists in the picturesque city of Puerto Vallarta into lockdown, and introducing some mayhem in Guadalajara, one of Mexico's biggest cities. At least 25 Mexican soldiers were killed in the ensuing retaliation. The U.S. Embassy in Mexico City advised Americans in the country to shelter in place. This isn't the first time Mexico has taken a drug lord off the field, only to discover in a short time that decapitating a cartel's leadership doesn't automatically translate into the organization's collapse. And even if it were to, rival groups would seek to exploit the situation by filling the vacuum. Therein lies the problem with a war on drugs mentality. While this approach can deliver headline-grabbing wins for governments and provide politicians with some positive gains in the polls, the sense of victory lasts for only a short while. Eventually, criminal organizations will adapt to protect their equities in a billion-dollar market, use ever greater levels of violence against the state, and further fracture an already complicated cartel landscape.
One doesn't need to look very far for an example. After one of El Chapo's sons conspired to kidnap Ismael El Mayo Zambada, a top leader in the Sinaloa cartel, in the summer of 2024, the entire organization descended into a civil war that continues today. With their leader detained, El Mayo's sicarios, or hitmen, declared war against supporters of Chapo's son. The result has been a bloodbath in the state of Sinaloa, with thousands killed, thousands more missing, and the violence reaching such heights that the Mexican government looks hopeless, if not hapless. The moral of the story, when you cut off the head of the octopus, the tentacles go out of control. It's far too early to predict whether the CJNG will descend into civil war like its rival Sinaloa. Ordinarily, one of Mencho's siblings or sons would take over to ensure a smooth transition, but all of them are locked up. If the Mexican government were smart, it would prepare for a situation in which Mencho's lieutenants turn their guns on each other in a bid to become the new boss. In this scenario, the CJNG would fracture into smaller warring factions, producing more obscene levels of bloodshed as a potential replacement tries to prove the mettle. This would be the exact opposite of what Sheinbaum and Mexico need right now, particularly when Trump continues to bring up the idea of deploying the U.S. military to do the job. How the Mexican government navigates this tricky period may determine if the Mencho operation was a hopeful turning point or merely a momentary success.
There you have the thoughts of Daniel DePetris of the Chicago Tribune. Moving along to the local folks. My view comes today from Richard Maurer of Hamburg, who remembers when youth hockey players had to practice over the border. The News recently published a photo of a homemade hockey rink. It reminded me of some of my boyhood efforts. Back in 1956, in the Bailey-Kensington area, I had a friend who lived near Roosevelt and Suffolk. His family owned the vacant corner lot, and after a heavy early snowstorm, a bunch of friends shoveled off that lot, making high banks on the perimeter. We ran a hose from his house and soon had a full lot skating surface surrounded by frozen snow. His father rigged up some lights, and we soon had a passable hockey rink with goals. We played every night and all weekend, and were soon being challenged by groups from the area. We resurfaced the rink every night with shovels and the hose hooked to the family's hot water tank. We had become full-time rink rats. By 1957, we had a team entered in the Buffalo Municipal Hockey League. We were the Scorpions and had our butts kicked game after game by teams like the Dick Fishers, Eldridge Bicycle Club, and other far better organized squads. That winter, we found a young Canadian guy who agreed to coach us. His name was Bob Westfall. He changed our name to the Regals and went on to establish a hockey dynasty in Buffalo. Improvement came slowly, and by the next winter, we were at least competitive. Westfall coached teams went on to win championships all over the country. One of our problems is a lack of decent equipment. Each team member had to solicit a sponsor to buy uniforms. Sticks, skates, shin pads, and gloves were another matter. I had Western Auto skates, cheap, and a wooden stick, $2. No one wore helmets in those days. I know I could not try a slap shot because I had only one stick and couldn't take the chance. Ice time was also hard to come by as there were no indoor rinks available in the city. Our practice time was 4 a.m. on Sunday mornings at the arena in Fort Erie, Ontario. Coach Westfall had our only car, and he would always fit 7 or 8 guys with equipment into it for the trip over the Peace Bridge. I don't remember any fathers volunteering to drive us at that time. Without a ride, you had to take the number 13 Kensington bus to Porter in Maine, transfer to the Porter bus to the Peace Bridge. From there, it was a hike over the bridge to the arena. I can remember January mornings at 10 degrees with the wind blowing hard. Ice time was $20 an hour in those days. The Buffalo Muni League played games at the Memorial Auditorium both before and after Bison games. It was glorious. That was the Bison hockey team back in the days when Pepsi sponsored them. A vivid memory happened after one goalie announced that his mother had forbidden him to play maskless in net. He was a South Buffalo guy who will be unnamed, but he went on to prominence with the Buffalo Fire Department. We needed him for a Sunday afternoon game, and Westfall drove to his house and beeped for him. He climbed out his bedroom window and jumped into the car. We are in the game now, and some sharpshooter comes over the blue line and lets a slap shot go. It catches our goalie square in the forehead. The blood is spurting like a fountain, and he goes down in a heap. All we can hear is him screaming, "My mother is going to kill me." Great days. Richard Maurer of Hamburg, Recollections.
And another voice addresses reform. Auto insurance changes would hit the working poor. This is from April and M. Baskin, who is a state senator. She represents the 63rd District. As a working mother, I remember the stress less than a decade ago of having to prove I was struggling to keep my family afloat, recertifying every 6 months for programs like HEAP, Child Care Assistance, and SNAP. I fear proposed changes to lower auto insurance premiums will imbue that same stress in working-class residents. Yes, New Yorkers deserve relief from skyrocketing auto insurance costs, but Governor Hochul's proposal to decrease insurance fraud could place new burdens on accident victims while asking little of insurance companies. The proposal would narrow the definition of serious injury, require accident victims to prove they can't work for 3 months within the first 6 months after a crash, and ban certain drivers from collecting benefits. Many injured workers who live paycheck to paycheck would lose benefits because they cannot afford to miss work even if they are still injured. This mirrors the dynamics that creates a benefits cliff. Policies that force people to choose between earning income and securing support. Insurance companies blame staged accidents and exaggerated injuries. Practice is already against the law for driving up costs, but the changes proposed would cause worse damage. Working class, senior, and marginalized residents are the most likely to be tripped up by complex requirements, and they are the ones who pay higher auto insurance premiums in the first place. Studies show insurers charge more based on zip code, not driving behavior. Neighborhoods with more black and brown residents, seniors, and working families routinely pay more for the same coverage despite similar driving records. Before weakening New Yorkers' rights, we should confront this discrimination. By contrast, reforms for insurance companies are modest. Requiring insurance to explain why rates are increasing is the bare minimum. Meanwhile, questions remain unanswered. What data show fraud is the primary driver of high premiums? Why do drivers in black and brown zip codes pay more? Wouldn't addressing that disparity save more than restricting injured drivers? I believe affordability is the executive and state legislature's goal. Our auto fraud reforms must address transparency and enforcement for insurers and drivers alike. And that again is from April and M. Baskin, who represents the 63rd District.
Turning to the health and finance and business section, from the Associated Press, Alexis St. John comes to us with a report that says the build-out of electric vehicle charging in the U.S. has not stopped since President Trump returned to office, but the administration and Congress are continuing to throw up new roadblocks. Those include the administration withholding charger money to Democratic-controlled states and Congress slicing away at separate infrastructure funding across other states. And this month, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy decreed that chargers must now be fully American-made, a difficult requirement that is certain to delay them. Even as EV adoption in the U.S. stayed just about the same last year as it did in 2024, fast charging installations saw record-breaking growth, according to a year-end report from data firm Perrin. The industry added more than 18,000 new fast-charging ports, amounting to a 30% increase year over year. The expansion of fast charging is especially important for EV drivers taking longer trips or those without alternatives such as home charging, which can be done overnight or over a longer period of time. But charging availability overall remains a concern for U.S. drivers considering an EV purchase. Slower charging options, known as Level 1 and Level 2 charging, have also grown. Most recently, the Trump administration is attempting to withhold money for charging infrastructure from Democratic-controlled states, directing the Department of Transportation to cancel funds for California, Colorado, Illinois, and Minnesota. Representatives of the four governors' offices told the Associated Press this week they had not yet received official notice of the cancellations. Congress, meanwhile, has rescinded more than $800 million in separate, previously appropriated charger money for several other states in its recent budget bill decisions, including Texas and Florida. This month, Duffy announced that states receiving federal money for EV chargers will have to install ones made entirely with U.S. parts. While yet to be finalized, the requirement was previously for 55% of the parts to be American. Now we're ensuring that if Congress wants to see these chargers built, we put America first, Duffy said. Doing so will unleash American manufacturing, protect our national security, and prevent taxpayer dollars from subsidizing our foreign adversaries. But experts say chargers of 100% U.S. parts could be nearly impossible with the current supply chain. By creating unreasonable standards and regulatory uncertainty for domestic manufacturers, such actions may cause supply chain disruptions, drive up costs, or cede market share to international competitors, said Albert Gore, executive director of the Zero Emission Transportation Association. Democratic Senator Sheldon Whitehouse of Rhode Island, ranking member of the Senate's Environment Committee, said this administration's message is clear: don't build. The congressional cuts and Duffy's rule hamper the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program, born out of the Biden administration's bipartisan infrastructure law that was passed by Congress in 2021. It gave $5 billion to states over 5 years in an attempt to fill gaps in the nation's public EV charging, focusing on highway corridors and in other areas in need of infrastructure. Another $2.5 billion was allocated to what is called the Charging and Fueling Infrastructure Discretionary Grant Program, or CFI. Last February, the Trump administration directed states to stop spending the funds for EV charging. In May, 17 of the states that received program funds sued the administration and challenged the Federal Highway Administration over the money, and a federal judge ruled that they must release billions of dollars to 14 of the state recipients. At the end of last year, 16 Democratic-led states and the District of Columbia launched a second lawsuit over the withholding of $2 billion of the funding. In January, the same judge ruled that the administration must also release those funds. Only a fraction of what was obligated has been spent so far, given that not all of the funds have been available, according to Lauren McDonald, chief analyst at EV data firm Charge Economics, which tracks the state awards. Despite the administration's loss in both lawsuits, Congress spending, reallocation, and Duffy's proposed rule means further bumps in the road for NEVI. McDonald said, at the worst, some experts say both could effectively kill the program.
And from Matt Glynn, an article about manufacturing, Sumitomo opens Getchville Technical Center. Sumitomo Rubber Industries has reestablished a local presence more than a year after the company sent shockwaves to the Buffalo Niagara region by closing its tire manufacturing plant. Sumitomo last month opened a technical center at 105 Cross Point Parkway and Cross Point Business Park in Getchville. The new center, which operates in leased space, employs 40 people in professional and engineering jobs. Sumitomo was using this center to conduct research and development on tires used in passenger cars, motorcycles, and light trucks for manufacturers in the replacement market. Sumitomo last September announced plans for the center, but has not specified where in Getchville it would be or when it would open. The research center is operated by its Sumitomo Rubber Industries America subsidiary. Japan-based Sumitomo abruptly shut its tire-making operation in the town of Tonawanda in November of 2024, eliminating about 1,500 jobs. Huafeng Rubber, based in Taiwan, has agreed to buy the shuttered Sheridan Drive manufacturing complex. Huafeng Rubber plans to produce tires in part in the complex and to attract other manufacturers to fill the rest. Huafeng, however, hasn't spelled out its plan for the sprawling Sumitomo site in detail, and it faces an always challenging task of finding companies to fill the vast amount of space that it won't occupy itself. The sale, however, eased concern that the Sumitomo site in the town of Tonawanda would become a decaying industrial relic.
As part of our newspaper reading, we now present the day's death listings. If you need further information on any of these names, call us at 716-821-5555. Again, that's 716-821-5555. Bender Johnny, age 57. He was from Varysburg. Johnson Amy Catherine. Used to see her at church every Sunday morning. Passed away unexpectedly, although she'd been suffering from cancer, in fact, for some years. Kwiatek Joseph. Let's see. Yeah, died just short of his 100th birthday. He would have been 100 years old in April. He's from Blaisdell. Lot Willie, 83-year-old, 93-year-old. Her maiden name was Washington. She was from Buffalo. And Martin Beulah May. Doesn't give us any information to tell us how old she was, but she was from Buffalo. We have a couple of national editorials, obituaries. Jeff Galloway, 80 years old, an Olympian who inspired with the run, walk, run method. He was a member of the 1972 U.S. Olympic team who for decades inspired elite athletes and countless everyday runners by promoting a run, walk, run strategy, whether in a marathon or just a neighborhood jog. He died on Wednesday at age 80. He had a hemorrhagic stroke and died at a hospital in Pensacola, Florida, his daughter-in-law, Carissa Galloway, said. His influence was evident in the final days of his life. Throngs of people posted videos online hoping for Galloway's recovery from emergency neurosurgery and thanking him for advice that boosted their confidence and took them to race starting lines. His family announced the surgery on February 20th and invited the public to express support. Jim Vance, an elite endurance sports consultant in San Diego, said Galloway was a pioneer in getting people to run. He removed the barrier to entry, which was mostly mental, Vance told the Associated Press. Running isn't supposed to be a sufferfest. It should be something peaceful, something enjoyable, so people can enjoy running and not dread it. So you run for a while, and slow down and take a walk for a little while, then run some more. Bobby McGee, a Colorado-based running coach, said Galloway's run, walk, run approach made running more accessible to the masses. When a group of people in any kind of run, from marathons to fun runs, get together afterwards, they talk about their time. McGee said nobody asked him if they ran the whole thing. Galloway is survived by 2 sons and 6 grandchildren. And Ann Godoff, 76-year-old editor of bestsellers, founded Penguin Press. I remember reading books published by Penguin Press. Ann Godoff, a leading book publisher for more than 30 years with an eye for timely and timeless works from Alexander Hamilton and Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil to current bestsellers by Giselle Pellico, and California Governor Gavin Newsom has died at age 76. She died of cancer Tuesday in Albany, according to a statement from Penguin Press, which she had founded in 2003. Ann's impact on American book culture over the past 4 decades is incalculable, Penguin Press publisher Scott Moyers said in a statement. An editor of immense range in fiction, nonfiction, and poetry, Ann shepherded into print innumerable New York Times bestsellers, multiple winners of every major award, and works that have appeared on all manner of best books list of the year, best books of the decade, best books of the century. A one-time NYU film student who studied under then faculty member Martin Scorsese, sold cars and assisted on Dr. Joyce Brothers' television show. Godoff was a late bloomer, who didn't begin her publishing career until her early 30s and soon revealed uncommon gifts for spotting and cultivating talent. As a rising editor at Random House in the 1990s, she published such debut phenomenons as John Berent's Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil and Caleb Carr's The Alienist. Best-selling author Roger Lowenstein, whose 7 books have all been published by Godoff, wrote in an email to the AP that she was an exacting but precise editor. He remembered a blistering memo from her while shaping the manuscript for Ways and Means, Lincoln and His Cabinet, and the Financing of the Civil War, a prize-winning history published in 2022. His final draft was 90 pages shorter, and he couldn't think of a single word that he regretted being cut. She generally reserved for praise, her praise, at least in my case, until the end of the process, often in letters that arrived unexpectedly in the mail. Nothing was ever sweeter because one worked so hard to get there, and because you knew that she meant it. Ann Godoff, dead at age 76.
Well, now we're going to move on to the Royal Stars, some little horoscopes from Georgia Nichols. And happy birthday for Friday, February 27th, 2026. You are observant, independent, and charismatic. You appear confident and purposeful. This is a fun-loving year for you. Enjoy socializing along with creative outlets. And the stars show the kind of day you'll have: 5 dynamic, 4 positive, 3 average, 2 so-so, 1 difficult. And these alternate between 3 and 4 stars, so I guess we're all going to have okay days. Aries is 3 stars. Take it easy today. Enjoy relaxing at home. You might entertain or do some research. Nevertheless, your home routine could be interrupted tonight. Research. Taurus, 4 stars. This is a popular day for you. Enjoy smoozing with siblings, relatives, and neighbors, as well as younger friends tonight. Friendly discussions. Gemini, 3 stars. Keep an eye on your money and assets today because you might find something or you might lose something. Tonight, impress authority figures. Cancer, 4 stars. With the moon in your sign today, you are powerful. Don't hesitate to ask the universe for a favor because you just might get it. Tonight, explore. Leo, 3 stars. Something going on behind the scenes might surprise you today. Meanwhile, discussions about shared property, inheritance, and jointly held items will go well. Tonight, check your finances. Virgo, 4 stars. A friend might surprise you today, or perhaps a member of a group or organization will do or say something that catches you off guard. Tonight, talk to a friend. Libra, 3 stars. People notice you today, which is a good thing because you make a great impression on everyone. Tonight, focus on work and health. And Scorpios, 4 stars. Travel plans might change today, so be ready for anything. This is also a good day for social outings, fun diversions, sports events, the arts and playful activities with kids. And tonight, social plans will delight you. Sagittarius, 3 stars. Keep an eye on banking issues and anything to do with shared property, taxes, debt, and inheritance, because something unexpected might occur tonight. Do-it-yourself projects. Capricorn, 4 stars. Pay attention to everything you say and do because this is a mildly accident-prone day for you. Tonight, warm contacts. Aquarius, 3 stars. Something unexpected might impact your work routine today. Staff shortages and equipment breakdowns are just some examples. Tonight, money discussions. And Pisces, 4 stars. Parents should be extra vigilant today because this is an accident-prone day for your kids. Meanwhile, social occasions might change. Tonight, they're persuasive. And today in history, in 1933, Germany's parliament building, the Reichstag, was gutted by fire. Chancellor Adolf Hitler, blaming communists, used the fire to justify suspending civil liberties. And in 1942, the Battle of Java Sea began. During the World War II, Imperial Japanese Navy forces scored a decisive victory over the Allies. And in 1951, the 22nd Amendment to the Constitution, limiting a president to 2 terms in office, was ratified. And 1972, President Richard M. Nixon and Chinese Premier Zhu Enlil issued the Shanghai Communique, a historic joint statement that called for normalizing relations between their countries at the conclusion of Nixon's visit. And in 1973, members of American Indian movement occupied the hamlet of Wounded Knee in South Dakota, the site of the 1890 massacre of Sioux men, women, and children. And the occupation would last over 2 months. In 1991, Operation Desert Storm came to a conclusion as President George H.W. Bush declared the White House address that Kuwait is liberated, Iraq's army is defeated, and announced that allies would suspend combat operations at midnight Eastern Time. And in 1997, Ireland became one of the last countries in the world to legalize divorce. Divorce remains illegal in just 2 countries, the Philippines and Vatican City.
I have a few minutes in this hour. We have another article from Jonathan Epstein, the news business writer. The historic and now vacant Civil War-era house in Allentown that later served as an American Legion post for more than 80 years could be turned into apartments. Clarence developer Lou Vizzone's Vision Company Site Development wants to convert the 15,600 square foot Hamlin House into 13 apartments and a commercial space of 3,000 square feet. Located at 432 Franklin Street in the city's Allentown Historic District, the property includes an original 3-story villa, an 1899 stable house and back, and a 1913 ballroom addition, with 2 small additions constructed around 1960. It's been empty for 3 years since the American Legion left in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. The apartments would be mostly market rate, with 3 studio apartments, 5 one-bedroom units, and 5 two-bedroom apartments. They'll mostly range in size from 413 to 1,000 square feet, with monthly rates of $1,074 to $1,834. But 2 of the units, both tiny studios of just 370 square feet, will be priced to be affordable for households earning no more than 80% of the area median income. That's in keeping with a new policy requirement of the Erie County Industrial Development Agency, which on Wednesday approved a sales tax break of $96,000 for the $3.4 million renovation project. However, even those units will rent for $970 or $2.62 per square foot. And such small units have earned criticism in the past from ECIDA board members who say they're too small to accommodate families. In fact, that jeopardized support for McGuire Development Company's $14.2 million Dunn Building project on Pearl Street, whose separate request for $505,000 in tax breaks was stalled for 2 months because of the criticism. That project also was approved Wednesday, allowing McGuire to convert the top 9 floors of the historic 130-year-old 10-story building into 36 studio, 1-bedroom, and 2-bedroom apartments with first floor's commercial space and a garden-level restaurant. 3 studios and a 1-bedroom unit will be affordable at 80% of AMI, but McGuire Vice President Eric Ekman was asked again on Wednesday if it could make a 2-bedroom unit affordable. It's a very challenging project, said Eric Ekman, a McGuire vice president. That's a pretty significant impact to convert a 2-bedroom from market rate to 80%. ECIDA acknowledged the challenge. We'd like to see more workforce housing. However, these old buildings just don't allow it, said ECIDA Chairman Brenda McDuffie. This is a very important structure in downtown Buffalo. It's not an easy project to do, said Erie County Executive Mark Polenkars. I've been in this building before. The design of the building is such that I commend them for taking it on. Vizone says that it needs the ECIDA's incentive as well as a separate property tax break it will seek from the city to make the Hamlin project work. That's because of higher costs associated with renovating an older building, according to the agency, a letter to the agency from Brianna Zhang, Vizone Company's Director of Real Estate. She noted that the developer also has to work within constraints and design limitations imposed by the State Historic Preservation Office and the National Park Service in order to maintain the historic integrity of the building and qualify for state and federal historic tax credits. That meant the location of the existing walls and other historic features largely dictated unit sizes and layouts, and Vizone can't convert the ballroom to apartments. As a result, the developer was limited in our ability to reconfigure the building for larger apartments and opt for a unit mix that worked within the historic footprint of the structure. A combination of state and federal historic tax credits, along with the ECIDA sales tax abatement, is what makes this project financially possible, she wrote. Maintaining lender confidence is therefore essential to ensuring the project moves forward. The project received support from Buffalo Common Council member Mitch Nowakowski, who described the Vizone project as a thoughtful redevelopment that will return this historic landmark to productive use. You're listening to a reading of articles in the Buffalo News for today, Friday, February 27th. I'm your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. So we turn for more readings after this short break. Your readers today are
J.J. Patek
and Don Williams.
If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you.
We'll continue now with our reading of articles from today's Buffalo News. Your readers are
Don Williams.
and J.J. Patek. And from Buffalo Next, the business of sports. The Buffalo Bills website offers a virtual tour of the new stadium. And this is from Mike Petro. Buffalo Bills are now offering a virtual tour of the new stadium on their website. It gives fans a perspective of what it will be like to sit inside the more than $2 billion stadium now under construction in Orchard Park, and could help to get more fans signed up for the season ticket holder waiting list. Offering online through the virtual venue digital platform, fans can get a look into the stadium from any seat in the building, whether it's the lower or upper level, including the club sections. Before this, only fans who were invited to the interactive virtual reality stadium experience center in Amherst got this kind of view. The experience center is where the team's sales consultant, Legends Global, pitched season ticket holders and some fans on the waiting list to pay for personal seat license for the right to purchase seats at the new stadium. The Experience Center closed in December after less than 2 years of being open. The team sold out its inventory of season tickets at the 60,000-plus seat stadium, scheduled to be substantially completed by July. The website tour is similar to the video screen that allows fans to see the view in 360-degree rotation from any seat in the new venue. Before, the view could only be accessed at the Experience Center. The virtual venue digital platform is intended to be an in-venue experience for customer engagement and fan interactions. The Bills are still accepting deposits for fans to get on the priority member list for seats at the new stadium, even though the new building is essentially sold out. This online virtual offering could help. The Bills were able to sell more than 54,000 seat licenses, even after some initial trepidation over the teams instituting the sale of PSLs at the new stadium and some sticker shock when the team first rolled out the PSL prices for the costly seats. PSLs were sold for between $750 and $50,000. Wow. The Bills are encouraging fans to remain on the waiting list and continue to sign up for it by putting down a $150 per seat deposit. Waiting list members will receive priority access to season tickets when they become available. That could happen if the fans default on their seat license payment or choose to sell their seats. They will also get first access to purchase standing room tickets and selected seats for individual games when they're available because of returns from visiting team ticket allocation and other NFL requirements. And they will gain playoff tickets pre-sale opportunities, concert and special event pre-sale offers in the Bills store and NFL shop discounts. With most current season ticket holders staying on the new stadium, the Bills were able to get only a little more than 2,000 fans on the wait list. As of December, the wait list was still around 7,000 accounts that make up the potential for around 20,000 seats.
Stephen Watson reports that the Seneca Nation of Indians has won its fight with the Grand Island officials over the tax status of 200 acres of undeveloped land in the center of the town. Grand Island leaders had asked the federal government to keep the property on the tax rolls and let the town retain more authority over how the site is reused. Instead, the U.S. Interior Department earlier this week approved the Seneca's request to make the property sovereign nation territory. We're excited to take this next step in making this piece of our ancestral homelands a vital part of the Seneca Nation's future, Seneca Nation President J. Conrad Seneca said in a statement on Thursday. Grand Island Town Board members did not respond to interview requests yesterday. It is not known whether the town will pursue legal action to overturn the decision. The town is reviewing all available options, Town Attorney Peter Godfrey told the Buffalo News, declining to comment further. The property in question has been a focal point of debate in the town for years. It was once the proposed location of a massive Amazon warehouse. When that project and others failed to win town approval, the landowner late last year opted to donate it to the Seneca Nation, triggering the latest struggle over the site's fate. The contested property status involves two parcels totaling 207 acres at Long and Bedell Roads near the Niagara Thruway interchange. Aquest Development, led by William Huntress and his son Michael, had owned the land for about 35 years. Aquest's efforts to bring Amazon to the site failed amid staunch local opposition. The developer came back with plans for a single-story, 1.1 million square foot warehouse on the Long Road property, a facility that fit the parcel's light industrial and research, or M1 zoning, with neighbors again balking. The town board in August passed a local law limiting what can be built in these M1 districts. In response, the Huntresses in December agreed to sell the parcels, assessed at a combined $924,500 to the Senecas for $1. The Seneca Nation Council approved the transaction late last year. The nation soon after submitted a request to the Interior Department's Bureau of Indian Affairs for restricted fee status for the property under the Seneca Nation Settlement Act, a change that would limit local jurisdiction and make the parcel tax exempt. The Grand Island Town Board voted January 20th to send a letter to the Interior Department objecting to the request. The town pointed out the two parcels generated just over $25,000 annually in town, county, and school property taxes. Exempting the property would wipe out this income, as well as significant additional revenue when the vacant land is redeveloped, the town argued. The town said that the 200-plus acres represent about 40% of the available undeveloped commercial land on the island. The placement of this property in restricted fee status leaves the town with no meaningful way to expand its tax base, attract new businesses, or generate the revenue necessary to maintain and improve municipal services, the town's letter read. The town also warned of an unmitigated financial disaster for the school district, with ripple effects for town taxpayers if the nation constructs a large subdivision without generating property tax revenue to offset the cost of serving the homeowners' children. Grand Island officials further said the land isn't eligible for restricted fee status because it violates the nation's gaming compact with the state. The agreement restricts land purchases made using Seneca Nation Settlement Act funds to parcels contiguous to an existing nation reservation, or the new casino properties, and only for the purposes of building new housing, according to the town's letter. The nation argued that the property is in near proximity to its former Buffalo Creek Reservation and its current casino in Buffalo, the town reported. But Grand Island officials said this land is too far from the Seneca casinos in Niagara Falls, Buffalo, and Salamanca, not to mention Seneca Reservation land, to qualify for this status. The Office of Governor Kathy Hochul joined the town in opposing the application. Representative Tim Kennedy, a Democrat from Buffalo whose district includes Grand Island, declined to comment through a spokesperson on the Seneca's application or the Interior Department decision. The department's Assistant Secretary for Indian Affairs on Tuesday issued a memo finding that the nation's restricted fee applications satisfy the requirements of the 1990 Seneca National Settlement Act, a department spokesperson told the news late Wednesday. The Seneca Nation said in the statement that it learned of the department's decision on Tuesday. It said the deed recognizing this sovereign status will now be recorded by the Bureau of Indian Affairs. The nation has not disclosed its plans for the Grand Island property. Town officials have said they are eager to work with the Senecas on the development of the site. And now that our permanent future on Grand Island is secured, the Seneca Nation will forever be connected to that community, Seneca, the nation president, stated. We think there are significant opportunities for how the site can be developed to benefit the long-term future of the Seneca Nation and our people, as well as the surrounding community and region. We look forward to exploring those opportunities in the days ahead.
And Buffalo Next Development, the Pegulas provide funding to restart Heritage Point. This is from Jonathan Epstein. After more than 2 years of trying to secure new funding for the long-stalled Heritage Point project, the canal-side developer Nick Sinatra has obtained the money he needed to restart construction. It's coming from Terry and Kim Pegula, who have vested interest in not having an unfinished steel and concrete construction project sitting across from their Lakecom Harbor Center. After seeing Heritage Point sit stagnant for a number of years, Terry Pegula's investment will fortunately allow construction to resume. Said Pete Gwelly, president of business operations for the Buffalo Bills and Buffalo Sabres. Given the proximity to the Key Bank Center and Harbor Center, he felt it was important to step in and ensure the project is completed as part of his desire to see the area move forward. Matt Connors, Sinatra and Company's real estate's vice president of development, confirmed the closing of the financing and called it a critical milestone for the project and culmination of years-long efforts to overcome meteoric cost escalation, stubbornly high interest rates, and other persistent challenges in the real estate market. Neither Welly nor Connors would say how much money the owner of the Buffalo Bills or the Buffalo Sabres are providing to Sinatra, nor would they describe whether the terms of the deal involve a loan or investment or how much control the Pegulas will have. But Pam Lent, spokesperson for the Erie Harbor Development Corporation and Empire State Development Corporation, confirmed that the deal closed Wednesday and was the financial arrangement that Sinatra had been working to secure for well over a year. She said that Sinatra had told the agencies that it completed financing in order to move forward with the construction of the Heritage Point project at Canalside. The lack of funding has held up his ability to pay contractors and get the $45 million project back on schedule 2 years after he suspended work when his previous financing fell through because his lender went belly up. The long drawn-out process of finding a new financing strained the patience of everyone from city leaders to Erie County Executive Mark Poloncarz to Governor Kathy Hochul. ECHDC told the developer he has to resume construction no later than April 1st, weather permitting. This is just over a month away, giving Sinatra a short time frame. And while he's also been promised over $8 million in state funds to backstop the project, Lentz said he will not receive any of that money until the project is completed in the spring of 2027. If the Pegulas are providing enough, it could allow Sinatra to finally finish up one of the most derided and controversial development projects in western New York. Multiple deadlines have come and gone, along with various promises. The project had originally been slated for completion in 2021, but now Sinatra expects completion by the end of 2027. This is encouraging news for Buffalo Mayor Sean Ryan said after a long period of uncertainty, moving forward with financing is an important step forward and finally delivering on the promise of Canalside as a vibrant year-round destination for residents and visitors to our cities. I'm hoping that the Pegulas can reinvigorate this long-stalled project and deliver real progress that brings activity, investment, and energy back to our waterfront. Meanwhile, all that exists at the site are a pair of 4-story gray concrete stair towers and 2 floors of steel framing. It is disappointing that the project was not managed in a manner that will allow it to be finished. However, our community deserves to see growth throughout the downtown region, Gwelly said. We've been encouraged by our conversation with the state, county, and city to a shared vision for the waterfront. We are hopeful that our involvement will help this area continue to progress. In an email statement, Sinatra expresses his appreciation to all project partners for their collaboration and commitment in navigating these complexities. He also cited the continued support of New York State and its public sector partners, including the Erie Canal Harbor Development Corporation, whose programs and cooperation have been instrumental in advancing a project of this scale and complexity along Buffalo's waterfront. Heritage Point has been in the works for 8 years since Sinatra was selected by the state in 2018 as a developer for the South Odd Block. He's building a pair of 6-story buildings with apartments and commercial space near the entrance of the Explorer and More Ralph C. Wilson Jr. Children's Museum. The goal is to start to replicate the historic look of Buffalo's waterfront area from the 19th century and to restore some of the identity that once existed. Plans call for 2 brick buildings totaling 104,000 square feet overlooking the canals between Hanover and Lloyd Street. They would contain 57 1- and 2-bedroom apartments plus 25,000 square feet of ground floor office and retail space, including for Sinatra's headquarters. It was previously slated to include 61 apartments, but was trimmed to account for more commercial space. 10% of the units will be affordable housing. The project has been delayed multiple times, first by the COVID-19 pandemic and then by delays with the state's transfer of the land and negotiations over parking, and also by soaring construction and material costs and supply chain issues that have been more than doubled for that cost. Environmental cleanup began in March of 2022, but that was also more challenging and costly than expected. Construction started in 2023, but stopped after one of Sinatra's lenders, Enhanced Capital, pulled out after its own funding source withdrew. Meanwhile, another lender cut back on its commitment in the wake of the rising interest rates. rising caution within the banking industry, and regulators concerned about lenders having too much exposure to real estate. Without that funding, Sinatra suspended work. The state notified Sinatra in June of 2024 that it was default of his developer agreements, so he appealed to Hochul, asking for additional $4 million loan on top of the $4 million that previously provided through a $2 million grant from the ECHDC and a $2 million loan from the Better Buffalo Fund, both authorized in 2019. ECHDC then threatened to reclaim the property and take over the project, while Poloncarz said the state should not give in and suggested punitive actions instead, including legal damages. But the state ultimately blinked because it was too far along with Sinatra, and the alternatives would likely result in costly legal action. It would not only delay the development even more, that would only delay the development even more. Heritage Point President's unique siting conditions include environmental considerations and a high water table requiring careful planning and execution during its development, Sinatra said in his statement. Despite market headwinds and numerous challenges, the development team has consistently maintained its focus on execution and responsibility and capital structuring.
Okay, I'm going to edit this next article a bit.
So,
from Robert Gavin, Albany Bureau Chief, we get the news that State Department of Motor Vehicles Commissioner Mark J.F. Schroeder, a South Buffalo native who served as both Buffalo City Controller and a county and state lawmaker, will retire from his DMV post at the end of April. Schroeder, age 70, whose retirement was made public yesterday, has led the 3,200 employee agency since his appointment from Governor Andrew Cuomo in January 2019. He's also chaired the Governor's Traffic Safety Committee since that time. He has served most of his tenure under Governor Kathy Hochul, whom he has known for more than 3 decades, dating to the governor's time on the Hamburg Town Board. It's been the honor of my lifetime to serve as DMV Commissioner, Schroeder said in a statement. When I first took this role, DMV was a butt of jokes. People would tell me they dreaded visits to our offices, how long they would take, and how often they would have to come back because they didn't have the right paperwork. I made it my mission to change that. Perceptions can take a long time to turn around, but I think we've been steadily effective in changing minds. I just think I'm very, very active and will remain active in a lot of the not-for-profits around here in Western New York, Schroeder, a married father and grandfather, said, noting he will sit on the boards of the Buffalo Irish Center and his alma mater, Bishop Timon St. Jude High School, where he previously served. I just feel like I've had a great career, and it's time to move along, but I'm just so grateful, he said.
And you're listening to the reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. Now, time is 18 minutes past the hour, and we will move on to, sports. The Thompson beats fatigue and helps Buffalo to victory, and this is from Rachel Lindsay. Tage Thompson admitted that the brunt of the last 3 days caught up with him as he rejoined the Buffalo Sabres for their first game out of the Olympic break. If Thompson was exhausted, he didn't show in the Sabres' 2-1 win against the New Jersey Devils on Wednesday at Prudential Center. Thompson scored a goal and an assist on the second goal and helped the Sabres hold off a third-period push to secure the win. I didn't feel great out there, Thompson said, but no better way to find out than just jumping right into it, and Thompson did. He played shorter shifts, but still finished within 19 minutes, 9 seconds of ice time. By comparison, he played 23 minutes, 18 seconds in the Sabres' last game before the Olympic break, in a 5-2 loss February 5th against Pittsburgh. He handled face-offs against the Devils. He put 3 shots on goal. Okay, where am I? I am on the wrong page here. Played 3 shots on goal and was +2. He finished with a goal and an assist, bringing his points total to 61, 31 goals and 30 assists for the season. He didn't have the luxury of having nearly 3 weeks off of the Olympic break, and there was no rest for Thompson, worried after playing the United States in the Winter Olympics, winning a gold medal, and then going three cities in 3 days. Milan, Miami, and Washington, D.C., before rejoining his team late Tuesday night in the New York City metro area. I feel better after the game got going, Thompson said. Nothing like that game intensity. Jumping back in, it was nice. Prior to the game, the Devils honored forward Jack Hughes, whose overtime goal Sunday lifted the United States to a 2-1 win against Canada for the gold medal in men's hockey, and Hughes summoned Thompson from the visitors' bench to share the moment. I wasn't expecting that, Thompson said. Very special. He's a class act. He cares about his teammates. He cares about his country. He cares about his team. He scored the overtime winner, and that's supposed to be a moment for him. And for him to include me in it, it was really special, and I definitely appreciated it. Then Thompson elevated his own game, giving the Sabres a 1-0 lead at 8 minutes 10 seconds of the second period. He did it despite the fatigue and in spite of the criticism he and the United States men faced in the wake of winning a gold medal, and in spite of pesky Devils team that cut the Sabres' lead to 2-1 on Timo Meier's goal with 2 minutes 30 seconds left in regulation after pulling goal Jake Allen at 28 saves for a sixth skater. If somebody has their own day off tonight, it would have been him, Sabres goalie Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen said of Thompson. But it tells about his character. He's always there for us, his teammates, and he's a big part of this team, and he knows it. As one of the leaders, he wants to be there every time for the games, for the guys. These are the types of games Thompson got a taste of when he played in the Olympics, and now there will be the types of games Thompson and the Sabres expect to play as they pursue a playoff berth over the final 24 games of the regular season, which continues Friday at Florida. We're going to find ourselves in a lot of games like that, Thompson said. The schedule's going to get harder, the games are going to get harder, more intense, and every team's fighting for points. It's such a tight race. Every point matters, and I think they're going to get every team's best every night. We just got to be ready for that.
Turning to the Bills, Jay Skursky reports that it's well established that Josh Allen is capable of the incredible. The Buffalo Bills star quarterback has made a habit out of turning routine plays into highlight moments. At times, however, those routine plays can sometimes turn into lowlight moments too. Case in point, the sack Allen took last season against the Cleveland Browns, or the lost fumble near the end of the second quarter against the Denver Broncos in the playoffs. That play should never have happened. 13 seconds to go in the half, and they're on their own 20.
Yeah.
They should have taken a kneel there, but now I'm editorializing. But it's generally accepted those plays come with the territory with Josh, and the good certainly outweighs the bad. But what should coaches do when the bad happens? Bills president of football operations and general manager Brandon Beane had an interesting response during his news conference at the NFL Scouting Combine earlier this week. Beane was asked what made the relationship between Allen and former Bills offensive coordinator Brian Daboll work so well. I think those two clicked because Josh has thick skin, and we've seen Brian. He's from Buffalo. He's blue collar. He's going to let you know that he loves you, and he's also going to let you know you screwed up, Beane said. I think that's why Brian and Josh really connected, and was a big part of Josh's early ascension as a Bill to where he's at now. That brings up an interesting question for the Bills. Is Joe Brady the right guy to coach Allen hard when the quarterback needs it? Brady came to Buffalo as Allen's quarterback's coach, then worked as his offensive coordinator. They're pretty close in age. They've got an established close relationship. If the coaching style that works for Allen is to ride him at times, can Brady do that? Great question that actually came up in the interview with Dave's and with Joe, Beane said. The Bills are confident Brady can provide that type of coaching based on how they saw his responsibilities increase within the organization. As the quarterback's coach, you're in charge of working with these players, with 3 players. As the offensive coordinator, that number multiplies. Additionally, the other position coaches are now no longer your peers. They report to you. Brady handled that transition well, Beane said, and he'll now have to do it with the full team. Part of this also falls on Allen. I give Josh a lot of credit. Josh doesn't try to take advantage of, well, you were my QB coach, Beane said. Josh respects the position that it is, and I think Joe understands that. So is it easy? No, I don't think he'll be, but I think he's aware, and I think Josh will treat that the right way as well. It's fair to point out there was some regression in Allen's game in 2025. His sack total jumped from 14 in 2024 to 40 last year, and not all of that can be pinned on the offensive line. Allen admittedly did a poor job of helping his guys up front and limiting the sack number by refusing to throw the ball away at times when the play was dead. The play against the Broncos, which handed Denver a field goal and what ended up being a 3-point Bills loss, was unacceptable. A case can be made that the coaching staff shouldn't have put Allen in that position in the first place. I think that's what I said. But an 8-year veteran has to know the last thing that can happen in that situation is a turnover. Allen has to shoulder some of the responsibility. It's crucial next season and moving on that the quarterback prioritizes better protecting the football. It's Brady's job to get that message across. We'll see the wow plays by Josh Allen, and then we'll go in the meeting room the next day and tell him it's not what we were looking for, Brady said. Don't get me wrong, I don't want to be a robot, right? I'm not a robot, but it can't just be, hey, when good results happen, good job. When bad results happen, bad job. When he's running with the ball, where the ball's not where it needs to be and we don't fumble, we still got to correct him and hold him accountable to it. And not only when he fumbles, if that makes sense. To the outside, that looks great, but to a coach, it's a correctable moment. Because if a similar thing happens to another player with a negative result, that's unacceptable. It's easy and he can take it, Brady said of coaching Allen hard. We have that relationship that when something is just not how it needs to be, I can go to him and say, that's how it is. He does not handle any of that in a negative way. And the reality is he understands it before it even needs to get said.
And Vrabel calls for a staffing at the replay centers, and this is from the Associated Press. New England Patriots coach Mike Vrabel called on the NFL to increase staffing at his replay command center to ensure reviews of all games are treated equally. Vrabel spoke out at the NFL Scouting Combine Wednesday and was asked about commitments earlier this week by league executive Troy Vincent that there were a handful of mistakes made in replay last season in games played in the early Sunday afternoon window when as many as 9 games were played at the same time. We need to make sure that every game is treated the same from the primetime game on Sunday to the primetime game on Monday or Thursday or whether it's one of those 1 p.m. games that is the lifeblood of our league, said Vrabel, who is a member of the competition committee. So if it's something we need to take care of in the off-season, staffing issues that need to be taken care of, so those things are looked at. We need to be really good at replay because there's going to be mistakes on the field. We have to get a system in replay that's as close to 100% accurate as possible. Vincent said there were 322 stoppages for replay reviews this past season, including 171 that were made from the replay center in New York. He said 5 of those plays were mishandled, with the majority coming in at the 1 p.m. Eastern Time window when there are more games being played simultaneously. There are 5 after we kind of took a step back and breathed. 4 of them were in the 1 p.m. window, Vincent said. Just volume, and you go, if we had to do that one again, just looking at it. At least one of those plays proved crucial in the playoff race. Vincent cited a replay review in Week 14 game that was overturned by a ruling, that overturned a ruling on the field of an interception thrown by Pittsburgh's Aaron Rodgers. The decision cost Baltimore 46 yards in field position, and the Ravens eventually lost the game 27-22 when a potential go-ahead touchdown from Lamar Jackson to Isaiah Likely was ruled incomplete by replay. That call was not one of the 5 Vincent referenced, but he did say it warranted more discussion about what is or isn't a catch. A win in that game for Baltimore would have given the Ravens the AFC North title instead of the Steelers. An increase in staffing at the replay command center during windows with more games would not solve all the inequities in comparison to higher profile games where features significantly more cameras are used by the broadcasters. San Francisco 49ers General Manager John Lynch, a former broadcaster and a new member of the competition committee, said that needs to be addressed as well. I do think that's something we want to strive for as a league, Lynch said. I think there is some uniformity you can get by requiring teams to have a fixed camera and things. I know all those things are being discussed, but that's a reality that the 1 p.m. games, there's multiple games going on at the same time, so the New York headquarters are not going to have all their attention on that game. And then within that, the element I talked about, just not having the amount of cameras and angles. That's a reality and something we have to figure out because every game is important in our league, not just the primetime games.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I'm going to be editing this one rather a lot. It's a most wonderful time of the year. That's Clevis Murray's take on the sports going on in high schools around Western New York. Boys basketball, games at SUNY Buffalo State University and SUNY Fredonia will be on this weekend. Friday, the Class A1 semifinals will be at Buffalo State. Number 1 seeded Grand Island will play number 5 Williamsville South at 7 p.m., followed by number 2 South Park facing number 6 Lewiston Porter. On Saturday, Buff State will host the Class A2 semifinals. Number 1 Iroquois takes on number 4 Fredonia, and number 7 Olean will meet number 3 East Aurora. Iroquois is led by Western New York scoring leader and senior guard Justin Kleitz, who's averaging over 34 points a game. On Saturday, SUNY Fredonia will host the B1 semifinals between Southwestern and Medina, followed by Olmsted against Springville. And on Sunday, the B2 semifinals will be at SUNY Fredonia again starting at noon when Tapestry plays number 4 MST and Akron faces Randolph. Jamestown Community College will play host to Clymer versus Panama on Monday in the Class D semifinals, and Sherman takes on number 3 Forestville. Monsignor Martin will host its semifinal games Saturday at Canisius University. St. Mary's meets Canisius at 6. The Crusaders swept the Lancers 2-0 during the regular season, including a 25-point victory on February 17th. In the nightcap, Nichols will face St. Joe's. Girls basketball. Buff State will host the Section 6 girls basketball semifinals for the first time. The change comes after multiple girls basketball players voiced wanting to be treated the same as the boys, having the same stage, playing at the venue multiple times. It seems only fair to me. Friday's Buffalo State games will be at Class A1 with Starpoint playing Williamsville South and Lewiston Porter going against Lakeshore. Saturday at Buff State, Depew plays Fredonia. Depew plays when is that? It's against. It's a noon game. There you go, against Iroquois. Depew and Iroquois, and East Aurora takes on Fredonia at 2 p.m. Also on Saturday, Akron facing Eden at Fredonia State, and Southwestern playing Salamanca. Boys hockey finals will be at KeyBank Center. That's looks like that's tomorrow. State Federation qualifiers will be at Houghton University for indoor track and field. And the wrestling individual championships are Friday through Saturday at MVP Arena in Albany. So that's high school sports wrapping up the season.
all righty. And you're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News and your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 33 minutes past the hour. And we are going to move on to some advice
About time.
from our Eric Thompson. Dear Eric. Dear Eric, I'm an African-American man in my late 60s, and nobody would call me the most religious guy on the planet, but the center aisle in the church would not open up and swallow me if I walked in. I have a white friend proud of his Jewish heritage who I've known since we were kids. He spends as much time in the synagogue as I spend in the church, as in not much. But he's always holding up his religion as his badge of honor. Admittedly, as a somewhat non-practitioner, I don't keep up with the Jewish holidays. He calls me all the time saying, hey, aren't you going to wish me a happy Hanukkah or a happy Rosh Hashanah? Tonight he sent me pictures of some religious celebration. I did a modest perusal on AI but couldn't find a single Jewish holiday that is being celebrated tonight. How do I get my old friend to take a chill pill? And it's signed, not religious. And he answers, dear not religious, it sounds like he's trying to share part of his culture with you. Some Jewish people don't practice or consider themselves particularly observant, but have deep connections with the cultural traditions and history of Judaism. This is very important, as with any other cultural tradition, racial, ethnic, or religious. So when he says, wish me a happy Hanukkah, he might be saying, that's a big part of who I am, and it'll be meaningful for you to see it and acknowledge it. Maybe next time consider asking him, what do you do for Hanukkah? Hanukkah, Purim, etc. Tell me what it means to you, and you could also just say Happy Hanukkah and leave it at that. For holidays you don't recognize, it's fine to ask, what holiday is this? The internet is also a good resource. I don't recommend using AI for any information gathering, but there are sites written by humans like Judaism 101 at jewfact.org, that's jewfaq.org/Jewish holidays, underline and holidays, that lists major holidays and provide explanations of their importance if you're curious. The next letter, Dear Eric, my husband and I have enjoyed hosting parties in our home for years. There are some guests that like to bring a bouquet of flowers to thank us. It's a very kind gesture, but to be honest, it's an inconvenience to deal with flowers while greeting other folks and finishing up last-minute preparation for the gathering. As alternatives, a small potted plant or flowers in a jar would be another way to thank hosts without creating extra work. Of course, we always show our appreciation to our guests that brought us the bouquets, but would it be rude to give them a vase and scissors and ask them if they could please arrange the flowers? Your thoughts? And it's signed, Lover of Flowers and Friends. And he answers, Dear Flowers and Friends, I don't think it's rude at all. Some guests love to be given something to do while the hosts finish preparing dinner. If you can set them up with what they need and they won't be in your way in the kitchen, hand over a vase without hesitation. And the last letter, Dear Eric, I'm a retired therapist who specializes in ADHD with adults and families and couples. I'm also ADHD, and I wanted to write about a letter from a retired whose friend was recently diagnosed with ADHD and has started using it as an excuse for a new habit of lateness, among other things. The diagnosis, while in some ways freeing, is an explanation, not an excuse. Most of my ADHD clients work really hard to learn coping techniques to help them get through their life and work. There are many behaviors that can be successfully managed. Timers on our phones work wonders. This quote-unquote friend of Tyre's needs some accountability for her behavior, and when she received the diagnosis, she had been given some guidance about symptom management. Dr. Daniel Amen has written several excellent books on ADHD, including tips for families with both children and adults with ADHD. I'm sorry that Tyre is going through so much stress. Perhaps it's time to reevaluate her own needs in this relationship, since her friend is exhibiting so little compassion. And it's signed, No Excuses. And the answer is, Dear No Excuses, thank you for this informed perspective. One of the issues with which the original letter writer was struggling was a desire to be compassionate and feeling being let down by a friend. And compassion goes both ways. While things like lateness can't always be avoided, it's important to acknowledge and take responsibility for the way our actions impact others. The health condition we deal with doesn't make us bad or good, but it would be greatly benefiting this relationship for the letter writer's friend to say, I know I kept you waiting and I know it's frustrating. I'm sorry. So,
Well, I'm taking another look at the front page, and I don't often have the opportunity to read much of the articles beforehand. This is mostly done cold, but I'm the guy who comes in early and sets up the schedule. And I took a look at the article that we began our broadcast with about the Border Patrol. But we have another article, this one from Dan Higgins, the News Enterprise editor. And while there's some overlap in the story, most of it is not information that you heard in the earlier reading. Nural Amin Shah Alam was dropped off by Border Patrol agents at a Tim Hortons restaurant on Niagara Street on the evening of February 19th, after being released from the Erie County Holding Center, where he had been an inmate for nearly a year. Shah Alam's family and Buffalo police said he was last seen about 8 p.m. Tim Hortons on Niagara near Ontario Street closes daily at 7. It's our understanding the restaurant was closed when he was dropped off. Buffalo Mayor Sean Ryan said at a news conference yesterday at City Hall, the Rohingya refugee who came to the United States legally to escape persecution by the government of Myanmar was nearly blind, had mobility issues, and spoke almost no English. He had no phone, and even if he did, family said he did not know his loved ones' phone numbers. No one from U.S. Customs and Border Protection informed anyone that they had dropped off Shah Alam or where they had left him. Shah Alam remained missing until Buffalo police discovered his body Tuesday night on Perry Street near KeyBank Center and about 4 miles from the Tim Hortons where he was left. Ryan said that when Shah Alam was found dead, he was not wearing shoes, but rather the orange booties that are issued to inmates at the holding center. So that's bad policing, but it's also bad human beings, Ryan said. It's an inhumane thing to do. He said he was confident any Buffalo police officer would have taken the man to a shelter if he had no other place to go. A spokesman for the Buffalo Police Department said the medical examiner has ruled out exposure and homicide as causes of death. Homicide detectives continue to investigate the matter, the spokesman said. Yesterday, Ryan said that city officials were assembling a timeline of Shah Alam's known whereabouts and the events leading up to his death. A spokesman for U.S. Customs and Border Protection in Buffalo responded to Ryan's remarks by resending his department's earlier statement, which read in part, Border Patrol agents offered Mr. Alam a courtesy ride, which he chose to accept to a coffee shop, determined to be a warm, safe location near his last known address, rather than be released directly from the Border Patrol station. He showed no signs of distress, mobility issues, or disabilities requiring special assistance. The U.S. Border Patrol defers to the Buffalo Police Department for further questions. When pressed to react to Ryan's specific claims and remarks, spokesman Michael Nisgada replied by email, U.S. Customs and Border Protection have nothing further. On Thursday, yesterday, U.S. Representative Tim Kennedy, the Democrat from Buffalo, said he wants a thorough and independent investigation of all aspects of the case. I've been in close contact with my congressional colleagues on key committees to ensure that this horrific accident is addressed with the seriousness and urgency that Mr. Shah Alam and his loved ones are owed. My office has reached out to the U.S. Border Patrol to demand answers and has been in close contact with local and state partners. I will not rest until Mr. Shah Alam's family and the community get all the answers they deserve, Kennedy said. He also sent a letter to New York Attorney General Letitia James urging her office to investigate. James' office said today it was reviewing its legal options. U.S. Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, Democrat from New York, also released a statement yesterday about Shah Alam's disappearance and death. She said she sent a letter to Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem to demand an investigation into the matter. I am deeply disturbed by reports that after taking him into custody, Border Patrol agents left Mr. Shah Alam at a Tim Hortons miles from his home without notifying his family or attorney before he was found dead. If true, this is absolutely unacceptable. The Department of Homeland Security, Customs and Border Protection, and local law enforcement must provide a full accounting of what has occurred and ensure this never happens again, Gillibrand said. The Refugee Partnership, a consortium of the 4 refugee resettlement agencies in Western New York, also released a statement. It is incomprehensible that such a tragedy could occur, and it speaks to a lack of treating our immigrant population with any human dignity and respect, the statement said. Immigrants such as Nurul Amin Shah Alam and his family and the tens of thousands of immigrants who have settled in our region are vital to the fabric of our community, and they deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. We remain resolute in our support of the immigrant population across our region, and we will continue to advocate and provide services to support individuals and families despite the significant challenges faced by our neighbors and organizations, the statement read. Erie County Sheriff's Office, which operates the Erie County Holding Center, said it followed proper procedures in handling Shah Alam's release from custody on February 19th after posting bail. The Legal Aid Bureau of Buffalo had been representing Shah Alam. In a statement yesterday, legal aid officials said they told Shah Alam's family it was safe to post bail without fear of taken to federal immigration detention. But because of an immigration hold in his file, he was released to the custody of Customs and Border Patrol officials, the statement from legal aid said. District Attorney Michael J. Kane said this week his office has expected Shah Alam to remain in jail until his sentencing next month in a case involving injuries suffered by 2 police officers when they arrested Shah Alam in February of last year. I just want to emphasize what we read earlier. Mr. Shah Alam legally entered the country.
Well, another one of those stories that won't go away. From Justin Sondel, the mayor releases all documents in the Granville case. Almost 2 years ago, almost 2 years after it happened and a year after it came to light, all files related to the Buffalo Police Department's internal affairs investigation to Erie County Sheriff's Narcotics Detective Daniel DJ Granville's 2024 crash spree in Buffalo's West Side have been released. But the story is far from over. During a news conference Thursday, Mayor Sean Ryan said he was following through on a campaign promise to bring transparency to the city government and releasing more than 3,200 pages and 12 hours of audio files, including interviews with Buffalo police officers who showed up at the scene, 911 dispatch calls alerting police to the crashes, and call logs from Granville's sister-in-law, Lucia Esquiline, then a lieutenant who was demoted to detective sergeant as a result of the internal affairs investigation. Ryan said the release of the files was a step forward rebuilding public trust in the department after the damage done by the handling of the on-scene investigation and subsequent internal affairs probe. Anyone can draw their own conclusions about how the Buffalo Police Department handled this incident and the subsequent investigation, and Ryan said, I myself would not have reviewed the full content of this release before the files released to all the public, but it was important to me that we get every file published as soon as possible, and that is out to the public today. The April 2024 incident was shielded from the public eye for almost a year until several news outlets broke the story in the spring of 2025. The documents, which can be found on the city's public records website, tells a tale of the night in which Granville crashed into 7 parked cars on Jersey Street and Prospect Avenue, causing a flood of 911 dispatch from people saying that the driver appeared to be intoxicated. Call logs from Esquiline show that she received a call from Granville around the time of the crash and placed dozens of calls and text messages to law enforcement officials over the next 24 hours. They included officers investigating the scene, Sheriff's Office Narcotic Detective James DeLacy, and interim Buffalo Police Commissioner Craig Macy, who was then a chief detective for the department. In statements given to the internal affairs investigators, Esquiline said she received the call from Granville, showed up to the scene, and drove him downtown to a downtown hotel, also having the vehicle towed to the Dart Street impound lot. She took him from the scene before Buffalo police officer Thomas Karbowski, the primary investigative officer, was on the scene, had interviewed Granville. Granville was not administered any sobriety test, according to documents and public statements from law enforcement officials, despite the dispatch calls saying he appeared intoxicated. He pleaded guilty in August to Buffalo City Court of a misdemeanor charge of reckless driving in connection with the crashes and to a charge of leaving the scene of a property damage accident, a traffic citation. The case was handled by the Niagara County District Attorney's Office after Erie County District Attorney Michael Kane recused his office, citing the employment of one of Granville's relatives. None of the responding Buffalo police officers were criminally charged as part of that probe. Ryan was critical of the handling of the case throughout his news conference, but said he has no path to recourse because the investigation and discipline process was completed before he took office. Nobody thinks that the city and the police department were transparent, he said. We can't change that, but we can go forward and try to rebuild the public's trust by creating a system that is more transparent. In an interview with internal affairs investigators, Macy, who said he considered Granville a friend, recalled being awakened by Esquiline's call. In interviews, both he and Esquiline said she called for advice on how to handle the ticketing and where to impound the county vehicle, but that Granville's state and whether he was intoxicated never came up. Ryan tapped Macy to be his interim commissioner in December, asked whether he had considered asking Macy to resign because of his interactions with Esquiline on the night of the incident. Ryan said the interim commissioner had been forthright with Ryan's transition team about the phone call from the beginning. He understands the appearance, Ryan said, but I'm satisfied that he acted appropriately based on the information that he received that evening. The city is conducting a nationwide search for Macy's replacement, which has been narrowed to 4 candidates, none of them from within the department, Ryan said. I thought Commissioner Macy was the best person to do this job to get us through this transition period, and so far he's exceeded expectations, Ryan said. And he said under Macy's leadership, the department has already made changes that should help introducing a new policy that requires officers to recuse themselves from any incident or investigation involving a family member, friend, or any other potentially compromising relationships. As we continue to work on modernizing and rebuilding the public trust with our police department, I thank Commissioner Macy for the work that he's done so far to improve the department and set the next commissioner up for success, Ryan said. Ryan laid the blame for his inability of his administration to oversee any disciplinary proceedings related to the internal affairs investigation at the feet of his predecessor, former Mayor Christopher Scanlon. The discipline for involved officers was handed out in Scanlon's final days in office. In addition to Escaline's demotion, Karbowski, the primary investigative officer, pleaded guilty to departmental charges, including a violation of body-worn camera policy, improper conduct, and a failure to follow procedures, resulting in a 4-day suspension under Wright. Scanlon, who was then Common Council president, became acting mayor following the October 2024 resignation of former Mayor Byron Brown. He returned to his South District Council seat when Ryan took office at the beginning of the year. He lost to Ryan in the Democratic primary last year before pulling out of what he said had been a heated and contentious race. In the late afternoon news conference, Scanlon defended his administration's handling of the matter and Wright's departmental discipline proceedings. This incident did not occur while I was mayor, Scanlon said, but I told the residents in the city of Buffalo it will be handled as quickly as possible. As I repeatedly stated, I do not, and would never intercede in any sort of internal affairs investigation. Scanlon pointed out it was not right, but former police commissioner Joe Gramaglia, who resigned amid a difference in police strategies with Scanlon in January of 2025, months before the accident came to light through news outlets breaking the story. This incident occurred under Commissioner Joseph Gramaglia, but came to light, was put to bed, and disciplined under my administration's watch, he said. He said he was only given the general direction to Wright that he wanted the investigation to be done as thoroughly and quickly as possible, but he didn't want to see it completed while he was in office. Certainly I did want it done, Scanlon said. I didn't want to punt. So, you got that.
Speaking of stories that won't go away,
Yeah.
Eric Tucker from the Associated Press reports that the Justice Department said Wednesday it was looking into whether it had improperly withheld documents from the Jeffrey Epstein files after several news organizations reported that some records involving uncorroborated accusations made by a woman against President Trump were not among those released to the public. The announcement followed news reports saying that a massive tranche of records released by the Justice Department did not include several summaries of interviews that the FBI conducted with an unidentified woman who came forward after Epstein's 2019 arrest and claimed to have been sexually assaulted by both Trump and Epstein when she was a minor in the 1980s. Several individuals and news outlets have recently flagged files related to documents produced to Ghislaine Maxwell in the discovery of her criminal case that they claim appear to be missing, the Justice Department said in a post on X. As with all documents that have been flagged by the public, the department is currently reviewing files within that category of the production. Maxwell, Epstein's longtime confidant, is serving a 20-year prison sentence on a sex trafficking conviction. The department said if any document is found to have been improperly withheld and is responsive to the federally enacted law mandating the file's release, the department will, of course, publish it consistent with the law. At issue is a series of interviews said to have been conducted in 2019 with a woman who made an allegation against Trump who has consistently denied any wrongdoing in connection with Epstein. News reports from recent days say the accuser was interviewed by the FBI 4 times as it sought to assess her account, but a summary of only one of those interviews was included in the recently public released files. The missing records were earlier reported by the journalist Roger Sullenberger on Substack and NPR and have since been documented by other news organizations. Lawyers for Epstein accusers told a New York judge this month that the lives of nearly 100 victims have been turned upside down by sloppy redactions in the government's latest release of records. The exposed material showing including nude photos showing the faces of potential victims, as well as names, email addresses, and other identifying information that was either unredacted or not fully obscured. Other uncorroborated claims against Trump and other public figures were included in the publicly available files. The department did not say in the social media post Wednesday why records related to this specific accusation might have been withheld.
Oh, boy.
We keep hoping that story will go away.
Yeah. Well,
You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for today, Friday, February 27th, 2026. We read the Buffalo News live on weekday and Sunday mornings at 9 and rebroadcast at 4 p.m. We do have a cartoon or two to share with you. I like the family circus today. Mom's standing there looking at Dolly, and Dolly saying, "I'm not tattletaling. I'm just telling you what happened." Well, if you need any further information, give us a call at 716-821-5555. Your readers today have been
J.J. Patek.
and Don Williams.
Thank
Probably using our. If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Zero, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you. following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another